My definition of mystery, it is the anticipation and excitement surrounding the space between not knowing something and knowing something. Hopefully, when you arrive at the end of it, there's some level of satisfaction. But I think that space of looking at a gift that is wrapped and not knowing what is inside it yet before you open it. And sometimes I never want to open the box because the feeling of mystery is always more exciting to me than the feeling of satisfaction once I look inside.
Open it or I will.
It's my birthday present, and I'll open it when I'm ready.
Wait.
Une fois le paquet ouvert et les premiers épisodes visionnés, The Leftovers plonge son public dans un état de questionnement profond. C'est dans ce même état que Damon Lindelof regarde sa propre création se dessiner,
What is it?
à la fois maître à bord et spectateur impuissant.
I think that anytime you are embarking on writing a new television show or telling a new story, that story is teaching you how to write it. And so that process happens again when the audience begins to watch it. The show will teach them how to watch it. Teaches them how to feel about the characters. When you first see people you don't know, am I supposed to like this person? Am I supposed to hate this person, or both? Is this a person a good person or a bad person? Do I want these two people to be together in some sort of romantic entanglement? I have an intention as the writer, but very often the show will rebel against me like a child, and it'll say, I don't want to do that. And if I ignore it and force it anyway, it doesn't turn out too well. But when I listen to the show, it tells me what it wants to be and what it wants to do. The audience will have the same process months later as they're watching it. I can be very impatient at first, and then I will hear the audience saying, when they watch that part of the show, I'm impatient, and I go, I know, it's coming.
I think something's fucking wrong with me.
I think you're right.
Why isn't it enough?
Because every man rebels against the idea that this is fucking it.
It does feel that the show has a consciousness of its own, and particularly because there's such an incredible collaboration on a show like The Leftovers. There's 7 other writers besides Tom Perrotta and myself, and we have very spirited debates. The writers range in age from early 20s to late 50s. It's half men, half women. There are people of color. There are gay individuals. So there's a lot of diversity in terms of background and thought in the room, and we all look at the world in wildly different ways, and we all have very impassioned arguments for why the audience needs to see the world the way that we see it.
What was that?
These characters are all asking very specific questions. They're all searching for something. Some of them know exactly what they're looking for, others don't. And I think that when we as writers basically know the answer, there's a huge temptation to basically say, let's give that to the characters, let's give that to the audience. But the debate that often breaks out in the writer's room is, but that never happens in life. You know, life is a little bit dirty, it's a little bit messy. Maybe you're provided with 2 different answers and you have to choose which one. So I think stemming from those debates and those arguments, there is this other entity that is bigger than all of us, and that is the show itself. And it very often whispers in our ears, and if we close our eyes and stop yelling at each other and listen to it, it will usually steer us true. I do think whatever your spiritual belief system, if you close your eyes and listen, something will speak to you.
Hello, my name is Matt Jameson. I don't understand your faith, but I understand commitment, and I respect it. But we are, all of us, no matter what we've suffered, still alive. We still feel pain and sorrow. We still feel loss. We still feel love.
The most important person to me when I work on a project is the writer, and second is the audience, and respecting their intelligence. All the books I read tend to be about the writing process. I'm fascinated by writers. And I'm fascinated by this new culture that I've just worked in, which is the writer's room culture. We don't have it in the UK. I was born in 1964 in the UK, and the television culture, and television really was my windows on the world. I wasn't from a background where you could afford to go to the cinema every week, and certainly it wasn't in my background to go to the theatre. So my early life and certainly my formative teenage years coincided with British television, possibly at its zenith. The British television of the 70s and early 80s was very faithful to the writer. It was very writer-led. It was not producers having ideas for television, it was writers saying, often from a political or social standpoint, this is what I want to write about. I absorbed all that. So I was used to very strong writers.
Les histoires ont toujours servi de guide à ceux qui les écoutent.
Will I forget him?
Never.
Avec The Leftovers, Damon Lindelof a créé un lieu de recueillement et de réflexion pour ses spectateurs. Ici, il faut savoir abandonner toutes ses croyances et être prêt à se reconstruire.
People always look to stories for guidelines for life. They like to compare themselves to the people in those stories and back to the days of the Bible, which is one of the first things that was written and widely spread. People put themselves into those stories and try to learn lessons from them. Hopefully, the things that we think about and the pain that we feel or the joy that we feel is transferable and connective to an audience at large. Television watching, unlike movie watching, is a very intimate and personal experience.
Stories in general have always been, I mean, even the Bible is a set of stories that are told to bring comfort or to bring, a sort of a justification to one's life. And so stories have always been like that instructive thing that people, whether it's a book or a TV show or a documentary or whatever, you're looking to them to hopefully give yourself some either comfort or to help answer some of the questions you might have. Our show does, I think does a very good job of asking questions, not answering them, but asking questions that people don't normally talk about in their normal life. I can say for a fact that you will die, I will die, they will die, but it's not something that it's not an opening line at a dinner table conversation necessarily. So our show kind of gives people permission to sort of, in maybe a safe way or an unsafe way, to sort of address some of those questions that are deeply uncomfortable to talk about sometimes.
Let's face it, Kevin. There are people who try to commit suicide for attention. And then there are people who really want to fucking die. Like me and you. I watched you do it. And you did not hesitate, my friend. Plunk. Right into the wet abyss. And if not for an act of divine intervention, you'd be gone.
I am fascinated with the idea of death, and I think that the older I get, the more intimate and experienced death becomes, because the more people I know have died. The longer you live on the planet, the more funerals you will attend, and the older you get, the closer you are to death. But I find myself oddly not as frightened of it as I was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I also know that there's a cycle, and it's possible that I will become frightened of it again. I take no comfort in the fact that I've sort of achieved my life's ambition in creating some television show that people will remember me by, because I always feel like, oh, I have one more thing to say, or did I say that well enough, or have I explored this too much and now I have to move on and say something else. So there's always a process of stress and anxiety, and probably when that ends, it will be time for me to lie down and and never sit up again. But in the meantime, I'm so fascinated about the relationships that we have and how death basically functions as this end-all be-all. And so this idea that anytime you're having a conversation with anyone who you deeply care about, that could be the last conversation you ever have.
I lost everyone. I lost everything, you fucking fraud. You fucking liar. You're not in pain? Because if you were in pain, you would know there is no moving on. There is no happiness. What's next? What's fucking next? Nothing is next. Nothing.
Dans The Leftovers, c'est la détresse de ceux qui n'ont pas disparu et qui errent dans un monde qu'ils ne comprennent plus que nous ressentons. Comme dans le livre de Tom Perrotta, Damon Lindelof ne s'encombre pas de l'élucidation du mystère. La thèse religieuse plane à la fois comme un soulagement et une menace.
I have not found a lot of success attending religious services, whether it's a temple or church. There's a great connection with all the people there, but for me, it very often comes burdened with a certain level of judgment. It's hard enough how hard I judge myself and how I'm judged by the humans around me. I don't need some deity in the sky to pile on. So, but it does in many ways feel like it's a religious experience, particularly writing a show that's grappling with the larger questions of what is our purpose on earth? Why are things happening to us? Do I have to suffer in order to achieve some fundamental level of grace? These are all religious questions. And then, of course, we have a main character who dies and comes back to life, which seems like it's miraculous. And he's trying to attach some level of meaning to the experiences that he has while he's dead, but he doesn't have any guidance.
How long? Were you dead? 8 hours.
That's much more like the human experience, where incredible things happen to us and we're left to our own devices to try to understand why, versus someone in the sky explains to us, oh, here's why this is happening to you and you just need to do this, this, and this. We kind of have to figure it out for ourselves, which can be frustrating, but I think that's much more in line with the experience I'm having on Earth.
I understand why people gravitate towards extreme beliefs or any belief for that matter. You know, I think, you know, it's one of the sort of questions that is put out in our show, which is, you know, is there meaning after death, or is there meaning to living? And I think at least for me, the answer is largely in the life is the thing. You know, that's the gift, and your job is to sort of have meaning in the moment or in the day, and then, you know, and then hopefully by the time you die, you've lived a good life.
If I go to the east, he is not there. If I go to the west, I do not find him. When he is at work in the north, I do not see him. When he turns to the south, I catch no glimpse of him. But he knows the way that I take. I have not departed. Not departed from the commandment of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my daily bread. Amen.
It's unusual for a show to address those issues so head-on. For instance, with a character like mine, who is so clearly identified with a figure from the Bible, Job, who is really the first existential man. He's the first man who eventually, after all his troubles, turns on God and says, what's this all about? What are you doing to me? And God, in an incredible passage, turns on him and says, how dare you ask me? I'm the man. I made the sea, I made the stars. How dare you even address me? Very powerful. I found it very easy to get inside Matt's skin because Matt has a sense of the truth or his truth, and I understood that. But it's very easy for me to locate the fact that priests, everybody else needs a path through life and something to cling to. I suppose if I have any sense of spiritual faith, it would be in art. So I just transferred that to Matt's faith in God. Some people believe that redemption lies in religion, and I happen to believe that redemption resides in art.
Damon Lindelof et ses comédiens ont vécu la fabrication de The Leftovers comme une expérience humaine intime. Un exercice basé sur la confiance et l'échange qui a permis de façonner des personnages toujours plus touchants.
I've absolute faith in Damon. He studies you. I think good showrunners look at the person that's playing that character. They watch you on and off set. They mine you for your preoccupations. I mentioned, for instance, once to Damon, we did a rehearsal of a scene. This is very pretentious, but we did a rehearsal of a scene with Janelle, who plays my wife. And she was in a wheelchair, and I said, I believe that these two, when they were young, they loved this Yeats poem called The Song of the Wandering Aengus. And somehow Damon got hold of it and used it. He had me saying that poem to her. So there's a two-way thing.
Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips, and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done. The silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun.
I'm sure Damon, at times, I don't think it would put necessarily me, Justin, into the role, but I think he would realize, when I was getting comfortable and then take me out of that comfort and put me into something else, and then take me out of that if I got comfortable in that and put me into another situation or scenario. I think it was, kind of a wonderful experience for me in that he didn't play to any of my strengths. He always kind of played to my weaknesses, like making me feel off-center.
Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? What? Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Yes.
Then I baptize you, Kevin Garvey, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, buried in the likeness of his death, and raised in the likeness of his resurrection.
Regarder The Leftovers et les instants de grâce de ces personnages est devenu un moment de méditation et un apprentissage de soi. La responsabilité de Damon Lindelof a dépassé celle d'un auteur pour devenir celle d'un guide spirituel. Se pose alors la question délicate de la rupture. Alors qu'il raconte l'histoire d'un groupe d'âmes abandonnées, il s'apprête à couper le cordon qui le lie à son public.
For the third and final season of The Leftovers, the very first thing that the writers talked about, and it took almost 3 weeks, was what is the final scene of the final episode? How is the series going to end? And while there was a tremendous amount of agreement on what the content of that scene was, and who was in it, and what they were talking about, this fundamental issue of what will satisfy the audience, should the answers be more emotional or should they be more philosophical, or should they just be much more direct? What is the most fair way of doing this in terms of what the spirit of the show is? The first season was based on Tom's novel, and we knew exactly what the ending of the season was going to be because it was already in the novel. And we did the same thing in season 2 with Kevin returning to his home and his entire extended family was there. And we were like, we need to get everybody into that house. That's the plot. But how do we want this to feel? What are the series of events basically preceding them all arriving in that house? And so it was somewhat of a process of working backwards. I think that when you have a very clear destination on the map, then you know what you're driving towards, and every time you come to an intersection, you know which way to turn. If you don't have a destination, you never know which way to turn.
Nous ne connaissons pas encore la dernière image de The Leftovers ni sa dernière émotion. Mais nous savons que chez Damon Lindelof, tout est une question de cycle. La fin est un éternel recommencement, alors c'est vers le générique de la première saison, vitrine de ce que la série allait nous offrir pendant 3 ans, que nous cherchons des éléments de réponse.